Back to the line, a story from Searchlight, New Mexico caught our attention this week. It ran in several newspapers and online news sites across the state. Reporter John Roby looked at the failing infrastructure in schools across New Mexico. Indeed, the examples he cited in John's story, were those shocking to you? You keep up on this kind of stuff. You did a lot of education stuff in the legislature, but I think for a lot of folks out there, brand new information, very shocking. How did you take this?
Well, it was interesting to me that they made it, it's no secret that schools in certain sections of New Mexico are old. They are old.
Right.
And I think that the study looked at 700 schools, but then the systems within the schools,
Right.
which yielded a lot more frightful instances of bats and
Right.
maybe asbestos, poor circulation.
Right.
But you know, I think that this is nothing new. I mean, I remember in 1998 when the Zuni schools came to sue the state of New Mexico because their roof was falling in, and they didn't have enough capital outlay money to repair it because they could not tax their citizens or bond or anything like that, and they only had a few legislators, so they could only get a very little bit of capital outlay. So they sued, and as a result, there was a system set up, a capital fund set up, and a public school finance authority, which then was supposed to equalize funding for some of these districts. And many of them had very old schools. So they then, they improved a little bit. But really, I think the article said that it would take $188 million to just keep the old schools in the situation that they are now.
That's right.
Well, that's impossible to come up with.
That's right.
In even 5 years or something like that, given all the other needs of New Mexico and state institutions, because you're also talking about the state fair, which is old and falling apart, the state mental hospital that is really falling apart. This is a bigger problem than just the schools. But it was pretty shocking because, you know, kids are entitled to a safe structure to learn in.
That's right.
It's more important.
That's right. Surge, Dee mentioned, I want to kind of go over some of the bullets on here, that Searchlight found reviewed records, 18,000 separate systems in 700 schools. 4 out of 5 have reached or surpassed their recommended lifespan. 22% are on the edge of system failure. Nearly 150 schools are operating despite systems that have been judged to pose a risk to life, safety, or health. That's a serious business here. We're not talking about a new paint job. We're talking about life and death here. So where do we come up with this kind of money that we're talking about, that Dee mentioned here? This is a priority issue that's going to be difficult.
Absolutely, and I'm fortunate. I feel grateful I don't have to figure that out. But as I often discuss, you know, with my students and in my discussion of law, it's cheaper to do that than to defend a lawsuit when students' lives and limbs have in fact been affected.
Thank you.
And you know, we owe it not just financially to be responsible, but to our children. I have 2 kids who are in public schools in the state of New Mexico, and I don't think that their lives have been in danger at the schools they are, but I see the places falling apart and they're old buildings that are not they're not supporting their ability to learn and grow.
That's right. And the science is clear on this. When you have a good learning environment literally around you, you learn better, you learn easier. The kids don't struggle as much with bad air, bad everything else that happens. So yeah. Laura, Dee mentioned that suit from a while ago, but there's another equal access suit that's out there looming for us next spring. A judge has ruled that we have to have access to better education for underserved kids, and this is going to cost a lot of money. So on top of getting these older schools up to speed, we've got this new situation with money. You see what I mean here? This is starting to become a big pile of education dough now. How do you
Yeah.
see this shaking out?
Well, that's what a lot of people call the Yazzie case. Yazzie's one of the plaintiffs in that case, and it was huge, and it's going to continue to be a big issue. I think that in the next legislative session, we're going to see whoever becomes governor taking on some education issues. I think we've already seen ads, both sides talking about teachers and talking about education, and I think that it's obviously there's a court order expecting some action from the legislature. So I do think that education is going to be a big part of it. And I think that what's interesting is we see right now we're in a better position financially. The state is in a better position in terms of its revenue forecast than it was in the past.
Right.
Even last session, they had a surplus as compared to the past sessions.
That's right.
So they were able to restore some of the funding that they had taken away, sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul. They were able to restore some of that and put in some increases. So I think we're going to see more of that this time. But I think infrastructure is such a huge part of it. In so many schools, we hear stories about students without proper heating in their classrooms,
That's
proper air conditioning, and that's just not a good condition for students to be able to learn in.
Exactly right. Another interesting wrinkle in education this week, Tom, is that we've had more teachers now ranked as highly effective or exemplary by PED standards in the last school year than we had the year before, and things seem to be ticking up. What do we make out of this? Is it still a little early, or do you sense a trend here that whatever's been put in place seems to be working a little bit for teachers?
Well, research can track whatever it is you want research to track. And
True.
so, with that, putting that aside, you have, this has been a big priority of even Secretary Scandera,
Right.
also Secretary-designate Ruskowski, to really kind of track performance of teachers. And it's something that's very controversial. So, it's a snapshot in time. So I think that anything that shows that we're having progress that can be backed up by research is a good thing.
Interesting. Dee Dee, hit on that if you would as well, this idea that, we've got a good number of teachers who are making strides, and they're going to get rewarded financially for this as well, with either $10,000 or $5,000 for their efforts. But we've got a good number of teachers who are at the lowest rank as well. And it's sort of, I feel like there's a balance going on here. For every, upgrade for a few teachers over there, we've got some other set of teachers who are not quite getting there. What's your sense
Well,
of
it's
it?
always been the case that there are good teachers and there are bad teachers, and it's
Right.
all in the definition of what is an exemplary teacher
Right.
and what is a bad teacher. Every student in the old days, anyway, before all the testing, determined whether teachers were exemplary or not. In the old days, every student required a different kind of touch. And what was a good teacher for one student was really a bad
right.
teacher for another student who had a different kind of learning style. The tests on which these definitions rest have always been very controversial. They never passed the legislature. They were enacted, and here is another executive agency doing something by regulation
Right.
instead of by law. We were talking about the Secretary of State earlier, and enacting a definition which has real problems for some, but on the other hand, may have up to the achievement level for some students.
Your sense of this surge as well, I know you're in a different universe as a university professor certainly, but you're a brethren of a sort. This idea that one can strive, you want to do well as a teacher. I don't know any teachers who don't want to do well, but there's this pot of money at the end of the rainbow. Is that an effective way to motivate teachers to having that kind of thing out there?
I mean, I assume it's effective in some cases to get people to say, hey, here's the way I get the points that I need to reach this, right?
Right.
But for someone who's actually interested in understanding what is really effective as a teacher, right? You don't look at, I get this many points for this and that many points for that, and therefore I am effective.
Right.
And as Dee was saying, right? Teachers respond to the students they have. Teachers
Right.
who care, who are effective, will do that, irrespective of the metrics that are in place. And so I think it is a recipe for some folks to focus single-mindedly on how that works, and other folks to say, well, I just have to let that go. And it creates inequity. It creates, no doubt, resentment.
Right.
And
What does it do for morale in your? I guess it's tough to make you speak for all teachers certainly,
Right.
but morale is a real thing in schools. If folks are not respected, treated well,
Right.
you know what I mean? You can do whatever. You can throw any amount of money on the table you want. But if morale's not there, it's not going to help anything.
You know, I mean, and you know, my experience with my students, or my children's teachers is none of them, they all are there because they want to teach, and I'm just amazed at the heroic efforts they do.
Right.
And I think if they start being reduced to, you know, these numbers, and you can swing wildly from one effectiveness level to another from year to year, then it does become less, there's less incentive and less enthusiasm about the teaching part and more about
Exactly
focusing on the
right.
numbers.
And if I could just add, that the teacher's just one element of it. And so when you're tracking teacher success, that is literally just how is a teacher doing and having with their particular students. The other factor is the community, which goes to the schools where students are learning, and also the communities and the level of education investment that families have had. You know, there are a lot of families in
enough.
New Mexico that have not had a high school graduate.
That's right.
Let alone a college graduate. And so, to say that, the teacher's success is up and so therefore everything is great, no, that's just one snapshot. You have to look at an entire community and how a community is doing. And that, I think, New Mexico is still falling short considerably.
Good point there. We'll have to end that there. When we come back to the line, we'll discuss rising rental prices here in Albuquerque.